Great. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we are introducing the Intern Resource Network, and joining me is Matthew Huffman, and he is Prevention Director for Missouri Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, and Joan Masters, who is the Director of Partners in Prevention. So let's get started on the first slide. And just a brief background about the Women's Foundation. Our objective is equity and opportunity for women. And we do our work with really three pillars. One is really investing in research and then using the research to guide us in philanthropic investments, and then finally to build out a public policy platform. And we used our research actually to make an investment in why we are here today into the Missouri Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence to be able to develop this intern portal. And a little bit additional background is why the Women's Foundation. A couple of years ago, when Speaker Richardson took over leadership of the House, one of the first objectives that he did was really looking at how he could really clean up the culture of the State House. And so the Women's Foundation partnered with him, collaborated, and worked on revising the sexual harassment and intern policies for the State House. And although our work really at that point in time focused on the public sector, this work and investment is really intentional, not only for public but also private sector. So that's a little bit of background of why the Women's Foundation and what brings us here today. And so now I'd like to turn it over to Matthew Huffman, again, the Prevention Director with Missouri Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. And then, Matthew, before you jump in, one additional housekeeping is there is a chat box bubble at the top of the screen. So throughout this presentation, as you think of questions, feel comfortable in posting those, or just know at the end we will open it up for questions and answers. So thank you. Matthew, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Wendy, and good morning. I'd like to start by just giving a little bit of background on how this whole project really began. And I'd like to acknowledge that there were a couple of interns who bravely came forward to blow the whistle on sexual harassment that they had experienced by elected officials in our Missouri State Capitol. And we also know that based on experiences that our U.S. Senator Claire McCaskill has discussed, that this behavior has been and can be pervasive in our Capitol. Yet we also know that both in the public and private sectors, sexual harassment occurs. And this site really recognizes that the workforce is a very different environment than a college campus, and that can leave interns vulnerable to an imbalance of power, which can then result in actions of sexual harassment. And so I feel like it's really important that we open this conversation with that before we get started on the demo. So now let's really talk about what is the Intern Resource Network. And the Missouri Intern Resource Network is a web-based resource that serves to be a centralized clearinghouse of information. And while this site is intended to help connect students to resources so that they know their full rights, we aren't trying to put the onus on students to prevent experiencing sexual harassment and assault in their internship. It's on the rest of us to ensure that we're working to create environments where all employees, including interns, are protected from experiencing sexual harassment and gender discrimination. So now let's take a look at some of the different functions of the site. Here on the home page of the Intern Resource Network, you'll see that we have different functions and topics of information specific to our target population. So across the home screen at the very top, you can see an About section where it really describes a little more about the history and background of this project. Then we have basic and detailed information on Title IX, as well as campus-specific resources. But then whenever you scroll down to the bottom of the home page, you'll see a section that says Services Near You. And this interactive feature will direct you to the Need Help section on the MCADSV website. And this can be used to connect students, campuses, and employers to local domestic and sexual violence advocates across the state. and these advocates are on the front lines. They can be a main source of support and safety for anyone who might have experienced sexual harassment or assault. These advocates are also experts in their community on the dynamics of domestic and sexual violence. They're skilled at providing effective and creative advocacy for those who've experienced violence and also with policymakers. So they're in a position to work with campuses to ensure that Title IX and the Missouri Human Rights Act are consistently and justly enforced. Now if we look at another section, we can see that in the student portion of the site, we really want students to know and understand their rights and the differences between Title IX, the Missouri Human Rights Act, and EEOC guidelines. Additionally, in another section here, we want students to have their own set of best practices. Oh, if we could jump back to the student section. So we have it broken into student rights, preparing for your internship, and identifying harassment. So here on student rights, it does talk about the differences between Title IX, the Missouri Human Rights Act, and the EEOC guidelines. Then with preparing for your internship, we really wanted students to have their own set of best practices for preparing to make the gown to town transition from their campus to any potential employment site. And then under identifying harassment, we really wanted to provide examples of how to identify sexual harassment, not to suggest that students can prevent their own harassment again, but really trying to increase their knowledge on how to identify harassment and promoting bystander intervention skills so that students can recognize and respond should they see it occur. I also want to mention here that MCADSV and Partners in Prevention worked with interns to develop content and gather feedback from them for this section, and we felt like that was a really important addition while we were developing this site.
It wasn't working online. So I just called and I just saw on because it wasn't.
If we can move to the advisor section now.
The beginning.
Thank you. So this section really recognizes that internship coordinators and faculty advisors are in a unique position to help students make the transition from their campus into their chosen careers and professions. Education on sexual harassment, discrimination, even gender dynamics aren't typically covered in the college course curriculum, and that can mean that students don't always know how to identify harassment and discrimination or really what to do if it occurs. And we also wanted to create an opportunity here for students and their advisors to have a conversation. Students identified that they would go to faculty and staff for assistance and support if they experience harassment or discrimination or even assault. And so it's really important that faculty and staff on campus are comfortable and prepared for those conversations. And then lastly in the section for site supervisors. Employers very obviously have an important role to play in this as well. And whenever employers, site supervisors invest in creating safe and stable environments for all of their employees, they not only increase employee retention, but also productivity and morale. So the best practices that we have in this section follow the Society for Human Resource Management, or SHRM toolkit, for employing interns. And it recognizes that we have a growing and changing workforce. Thank you. So this section really recognizes that we have a growing and changing workforce, and that's one that often requires hands-on job experience. So a strong internship program can really help to drive an organization's diversity and equity initiatives. And also it recognizes that interns are able to provide key insight into organizational culture. Regular employees might not recognize or really feel comfortable bringing up issues of bullying, harassment, discrimination, and dishonesty. And if human resource managers don't know that that's occurring, then it really sets an organization back. So a strong internship program can help students build their own leadership skills, and it can help human resource managers evaluate their workplace culture. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Joan Masters to talk about our campus partners on this project.
Thank you, Matthew. Partners in Prevention is a coalition of 21 colleges and universities in Missouri. As a consortium, we're dedicated to creating healthy and safe campus environments for Missouri college students related to a variety of issues such as high-risk drinking, sexual assault, sexual health, and driving behaviors. This important work includes providing tools for campus partners such as faculty and staff to have resources to assist students, whether students are on campus taking classes, living in our residence halls, or off campus participating in internships or other placement required for their academic work. This is why we were really pleased to partner with MCADSV and the Women's Foundation to help to create this resource. Together with a planning committee of 10 professionals from PIP campuses in Missouri, we discussed the tools and best practices that would be helpful for campus partners, such as faculty and staff, site supervisors at internship placements, and students, to help provide those students going on internship with the necessary support that they will need before, during, and after their internship process, should they experience sexual harassment, sexual assault, or any other unwanted sexual contact. It's important to note that the tools on mointernnetwork.org are important, again, before, during, and after a student internship placement. We're providing campus representatives the tools to educate students about their rights under Title IX, the EEOC, and the Human Rights Act, and how to identify sexual harassment in the workplace. Additionally, we want students to know that they are not alone if they experience unwanted sexual contact while at their internship placement, and they have options for changing placements if unwanted sexual contact occurs. They are afforded rights and support from their campus community, even if they are not on campus for the semester. You'll notice on the next slide that we provide a campus resources page on mointernnetwork.org, which provides the Title IX resources for each campus, as well as a link to the Counseling Center or other mental health resources for students, should the student who experiences unwanted sexual contact or assault wish to seek emotional and mental health support during their process. By providing students with valuable information about their rights and how they should expect to be treated while on internship is a vital role that campuses must play to help decrease sexual assault and unwanted sexual advances in the workplace, internship, or post-graduation. Partners in Prevention, the planning team for this project, and our 21 campuses, we're so pleased to be able to promote this resource to our campus partners, and we look forward to the future that this very important resource sets for us, as it is just the beginning to address this important topic in student internship placement. I'd like to turn it back over to Wendy for the question and answer portion of the event.
Thank you, Joan. And I would like, before we open it up for questions, to do a big thank you again for this great collaboration between MCADSV and Partners in Prevention, and thank Matthew and Joan for their really good work. One housekeeping thing before we open it up for questions, we will be following up and sending out some additional information with the slides in case there was some technical difficulty that you had. But now I would like to ask that you unmute your calls, and this is the time to ask questions. And if you could identify yourself and the organization that you're representing, that would be helpful. Thank you. So any questions?
Hi, this is Summer Valentine. I'm a reporter with the Associated Press. I'm curious to know if you've worked with the Missouri House and Missouri Senate, and if they're also going to be promoting this site for the interns who later come to the Capitol.
Yes, great question, and thank you for that. You may not have caught at the very beginning, but this really, for the Women's Foundation and for our partners here on the call, was really the why we ended up with this resource today. And Women's Foundation worked closely with Speaker Richardson under his leadership and commitment to really clean up the culture in the State House. And Women's Foundation worked 2 years ago alongside him to revise the sexual harassment and intern policies for the State House. And so, yes, this is continued work, and this portal and information continues to be in dialogue and will be shared with the interns in the State House. So great question.
My name is Lily O'Neill. I'm a reporter with the Columbia Missourian. How are you trying to send this website out to people or promote it, as well as just are you trying to expand this website outside of Missouri as well?
So Matthew, that may be a great question to direct to you.
Sure, thank you. Part of the intent behind this is to really work on creating a network and disseminating it through all of the people who we consider to be stakeholders. And so as I had mentioned as we were demoing the site, one major stakeholder are going to be the domestic and sexual violence advocates across the state who are running hotlines, who are experts in their community. Additionally, we know that partnering with Partners in Prevention and disseminating it through their campuses is going to be one of the best ways to get it out to not only students, but those campus advisors. And then we're also working with other statewide partners to make sure that we have a strong buy-in from the public and private sector, business communities, and business leaders, because we know that we really want to make sure that equitable work environments are created across the state. So this is something that is unique to Missouri, and I think it can also really work to serve as a model for other states as well.
Thank you.
Joan, is there anything you would like to add?
I would just reiterate that Partners in Prevention is 21 campuses in the state. It's all of the public universities as well as some private and technical schools. So we have already begun with the release of the website to partner with campuses. Matthew noted that we did have an intern that worked on this project, several interns. And so our Partners in Prevention intern had developed a list for us of key partners with career centers, internship placements, et cetera, that our 21 campuses use. So we've already disseminated this important tool to them and reiterated the importance of their role in addressing this issue.
And then I would just like to add, this is Wendy with the Women's Foundation, to add that through our network and work in Missouri and Kansas, we share this as a best practice too, as an example of a tool that could be developed in other areas too. So great question. Is there another question that we may take? Any additional questions for us? Well, moving to our final slide, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. And just as a reference point again, the website actually for the Intern Resource Network is noted above, mointernnetwork.org. And then the other partners that are joining us today, MCADSV and Partners in Prevention, their contact information is listed below along with the Women's Foundation. So again, thank you so much for your interest and for joining us today for our virtual press conference. Have a great day.